It wasn't always the case. My voting precinct used to be at the Miller Performing Arts Center. It's a 1.5 mile walk from my house. What if you can't walk? Well, you can take the bus. Has anybody tried taking the bus here in Jefferson City? See no hands. What did you say?
Does the shuttle count?
No. The shuttle is actually probably halfway decent. The bus system has very low ridership. So I think they're back up to every hour. They were down to every other hour. Sorry, I just turned to work on my phone. They were down to every other hour. So from my house, luckily at the end of my block, there's a bus stop. If I want to go to Schnucks, for example, I could take the bus to go to Schnucks. How would I do this? Well, I've got to wait for the right hour that it comes, and I've got to get on the bus, and it takes about 45 minutes to take me on a loop to the depot. Then I get to the depot, and I've got to switch buses, and it's going to take about a 45-minute loop to get to Schnucks. If it's not an off hour, then I have to wait like an hour before that next bus goes. So to get to the grocery store to pick up my groceries, it might be upwards of like a 3-hour journey. And on the way back, same thing. How many people are going to spend an entire day to go cast their ballot in a presidential election, let alone like an election for who is on the Jefferson City Council? So the resources that people have, massive impact on their ability to vote. Second, motivation. This is going to be factors like how interested you are, the issue salience, how much do you care about the thing happening? Do you feel this civic duty? Are you angry at the current administration, or are you enthusiastic about a candidate? There are different times where it's like, who the hell cares? Like, everybody's the same on this ballot. Why am I even going to brave this spitting rain weather to go out and take care of this? I would argue that everybody should vote. And yes, it's your civic duty, but the bigger thing is that with the turnout, as we'll talk about later, elections can really be decided based on if, as a generation, people get out to vote. So if you guys talk to your friends and you all get out to vote, you can significantly influence the outcome of a local election here in Jefferson City or Cole County, just because there is power in numbers, especially with the smaller elections. If it was a whole generational movement, if TikTok, you guys said you're on TikTok, right? That's the current social media of choice, right? If there were lots of influencers on TikTok motivating you guys to get out to vote, that could completely upend an election. Because, well, we'll talk about the statistics later. Next, mobilization. This is kind of talking about that. This is the party contact, the campaign outreach, reminders, social pressure. How informed are you about the election? Typically, people are going to start getting informed about the election based on the ads they're seeing and things like that, based on people coming into Lincoln and saying, hey, did you vote? Are you going to go vote? Let's go vote together, kind of thing. 4, rules and costs, registration, voter hours, ID requirements, ballot access, and convenience are all going to factor into the rules. How many people have a real ID? You do? Anybody else? You do?
Just because I got my driver's license late and they made me get one.
Yeah? You still have an option not to get one. Good thing you did, though.
Well, it said I couldn't enter any government buildings or airports. And my mother lobbies a lot, and I come with her sometimes, so I wouldn't be able to. So.
Well, the Missouri Capitol is an exception because they don't really check ID. Go figure. They've also got the metal detectors and everything. But shortly after they put those in and started enforcing like a no guns policy, some bill was introduced so that legislators could still open carry on the floor. Because, you know, nothing says civil debate without like having, you know, a Smith & Wesson strapped to your hip. Anyway, you guys might have heard about the Republicans trying to push forward legislation that would require ID. Do you remember, Ms. Trefethen, what all you had to bring in when you got your real ID?
Same thing as the driver's license.
A little bit more.
Uh,
It is crazy how much documentation you
I
have to
think
bring.
birth certificate. I think
Pretty sure it's 2 things that have your address.
mail. Yeah.
You've got to bring, if you've been married, you have to bring in your marriage certificate. You have to bring in a proof of residency and a proof of something else, and they can't be the same document. And your birth certificate or your like social security card and the hair of a unicorn. And no, just kidding about that last one, of course.
I have a helicopter parent, so she has this big folder with like tons of all my records in it. And she's like, take this. So I don't really remember.
It's fantastic, but guess who typically doesn't have access to that kind of documentation?
Or
Yeah. If you aren't well off, you maybe don't have your social security card hanging around, or your birth certificate hanging out in like a nice organized folio sort of thing. You can get it. It just costs more time and money. So by having voter ID laws, good idea, sounds like something we can all get on board with, but the requirements to get an ID have become pretty difficult.
the birth name one, my mother, she has bipolar disorder, and when she was manic, she changed her name from Amy with AMY to AMYE because she liked Anne of Green Gables and was like a little, manic. She doesn't think she can vote because she doesn't have a proof of name change. And I can't remember if there's a new law that says you need to have your birth name on your driver's license.
There is not yet, but there will be soon.
Will be.
Um,
That's to stop trans people, I think.
Well, and that's another big thing. Kansas just invalidated multiple people's IDs who were transgender because their IDs didn't contain the proper sex in the eyes of Kansas. Again, makes it difficult to vote if you don't have that. Interestingly enough, so there's all these different requirements that are out there. I just applied for, my whole family has passports because we love to travel. My daughters, they misprinted. So she was born December 9th, so 12/9, and they wrote it as 9/12, so September 12th. So that's a little bit of a problem. TSA tends to freak out when things like that are wrong. How do you prove that she is who she says she is and everything like that? Well, you've got to send in a birth certificate and a signed affidavit stating that she was actually born on this date, and this complete form, along with passport photos. And again, it just becomes an onerous task to comply with some of these rules and requirements. The other thing is ballot access. Again, this isn't something that a lot of people think about, but as a person with a visual impairment, having braille ballots or large print ballots, things like that are unfortunately less and less common. There was a big push to try and have machines and things that would make ballots more accessible. So those touch displays that you may have seen can have large print and everything. Pretty cool if anybody can walk in, put their paper in the machine, and be able to read it just like anybody else. However, there's concerns that the touch screen things can be hacked and things like that. So what has happened? Those are gone. You now fill in a ballot in Cole County on like a Scantron piece of paper. So fun times. The fifth element is election context. Is this going to be a presidential election, a midterm? Is it a close race, or is there going to be a low attention race, right? People are a lot less likely to turn out in elections early in the year because they typically aren't our big federal elections. Not many people care about who's on city council. People care a little bit more about midterms. Everybody's going to turn out if they want to vote for the presidential election, right? The key line here is that people do not vote just because they care. They vote when motivation, opportunity, and mobilization all line up in kind of this perfect storm. There's a little bit of a helpful contrast here. Presidential elections usually produce higher turnout. Midterms and local elections often have lower turnout and more unequal participation. I will tell you guys though, midterms are coming up at the end of or in November. If you are not yet registered to vote, you should register to vote, and you should actually go out and vote. Why? It is the balance of the House and Senate are hanging on by a thread. Right now, both are controlled by the Republicans. There are enough seats up for grabs that both chambers could flip to the Democrats. I'm again not saying what way you should vote, but if you care at all about who runs our country, the entire polarity of our government could shift based on what happens in November. So if you're not registered to vote, you should get registered to vote. It's pretty easy. What'd you say? Okay, sorry. So we're gonna make this activity something else. Who's most likely to vote? I'm going to read you guys a sample profile of 4 individuals. I want you to tell me if you think they're likely to vote or not and why. So profile 1, a 68-year-old homeowner who follows the news daily and always votes. How many people think this person is likely to vote? Sweet. Why are they likely to go on about this forever? But I do have 3 more things I want to cover before we end this class. We're going to skip that last one. We're going to skip that. We talked about how election rules influence voter turnout. All right, so there's some trade-offs when we talk about election rules because, while I kind of highlighted the negatives of having strict rules, for every rule, we have to ask certain questions. Does it actually make voting easier or harder? What problem is the rule trying to solve? Excuse me. Who is most affected by the rule? And what value is being emphasized by the rule? Is it access, security, efficiency, public confidence? The key line, the takeaway from this is election rules are not neutral background details. They shape who shows up. So that covers everything I wanted to chat with you guys today. Let me get the roll done really fast, and then I'll answer any questions you guys have. Actually, what questions do you guys have first? Because it'll take a minute for this to load. All right, hearing none, let me get the roll done, and we'll go from there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to inflation and job availability, won't AI completely destroy that too?
100%.
I mean, I went to school for graphic design and it ended up changing just because as soon as I saw the progress AI was making, I knew I was going to have a job.
I think that, so to kind of assuage your fears about AI, I think that there will always need that human component. And I had, when I was the CLE attorney for the bar, I had this conversation with one of our brand new communications people. There will always be people who need to come up with the ideas for content and who will need to polish the content to get it ready for the consumer. And AI can help with that middle stuff, but it's not going to be able to conceive of the ideas or polish it to that final work product, at least not in its current form. But I do think we're moving into a world, and I told my wife this 5-6 years ago, we're moving into a world, she's a physical therapist. And I said, eventually they'll be able to come up with machines that do physical therapy better than any human can do physical therapy. Because when you say, all right, we need to bend this joint to this degree, a robot will be able to do that within like, a couple of minutes or seconds of that degree, whereas a human is not going to be as precise. So eventually what we're going to get to probably is the person who operates the machine. They push the big green button to make it go and push the big red button to make it stop kind of thing. And the people who program those machines, because AI is only as good as the data we're feeding it, and we need to make sure that that information is accurate. So there will always be a need for the people who like program the machine or work with the AI to get the good information out. But eventually we're going to have operators, not doers.
Yeah,
And-
operators get paid less.
Probably. And so we're going to see that shift happen, and we're seeing it happen in, I think H&R Block fired like half their staff because AI can do it. So there's some terrifying things on the horizon that are going to factor into that income and inflation stuff too. All right, I'm going to do the roll. I'll be happy to answer any more questions in just a moment. But let me get this out of the way so people who need to go can go.